Hey folks, how you doing? Welcome back for another video where I talk about things and in this video coming to you live from northern Israel where there is unfortunately still a war going on here on the 80th anniversary. It's about to start the 80th year since the end of World War II and the whole Nazi Holocaust against the Jews and gypsies and homosexuals and people with mental illnesses. And of course, the Jewish people were targeted specifically because of their religion. They were the only group of people targeted for complete extermination based purely on their beliefs in God, um, or just the fact that they were born Jewish, whether they believe in God or not. Here we are, the holiday, somber holiday in Israel. It's called Yom HaZikaron, the Day of Remembrance Yom HaShoah, the Day of the Holocaust. When we remember the fallen victims and heroes of the Holocaust, martyrs and heroes who met their end at the hands of the Nazis. And on this date, Israel remains in a state of war with the insane asylum of Hamas in Gaza and the Houthis in Yemen. In fact, just this morning, earlier in the day, around 4 o'clock in the morning, Israel time, a siren blasted throughout much of northern Israel in the area around Haifa, in and around Haifa, because a rocket had been fired, a ballistic missile of some kind had been fired from Yemen to Israel, and it had apparently reached the country and flown up into the north. Um, so we all had to go to our shelters, and we heard the blast of the defense system destroying it right over our heads. So that is still happening occasionally. This is, I think, the first time, maybe the second, but I think it's the first. I think it's the first time that the Houthis have managed to fire a rocket all the way into the north of Israel. Normally, they don't quite even make it to Israel. They get shot down before they get even to Israel. Um, but when they do get to Israel, normally they get shot down either somewhere in the south. A couple of times they've made it towards the center. Obviously, they had that one drone attack that flew over the Sinai and then out into the Mediterranean Sea a little bit, and then smashed into an apartment building in Tel Aviv, not far from the beach, and killed somebody there. So that is, you know, the Houthis have managed to kill somebody in the year and a half that they've been shooting how many hundreds of rockets towards Israel. But apart from that, they have not, thankfully, killed anybody. They've done a lot of damage to various buildings and things like that. And you got to remember, they do have fairly sophisticated weapons that are provided to them. Russian weapons that they either get directly from Russia sometimes or from Iran. And that war is still ongoing. So the Houthis are still blockading ships that try to go through the Red Sea to Israel. That has actually caused the Israeli port in Eilat to be shut down now for about, I think, about a year or most of a year, a long time. Pretty much, within months of October 7th, 2023, once the Houthis began firing rockets towards Israel, the port of Eilat quickly saw, traffic to its port decrease substantially, 30%, 40%, 50%, 70%, dramatically, and then eventually went to I think 70 or 90% of all their expected ships were just not showing up because they couldn't get there safely. And since then, the port of Eilat has had to basically declare bankruptcy or shut its doors temporarily, and maybe they're getting some kind of government assistance to essentially keep the payroll going, but they're not actually doing any work or something like that. In any case, it's very bad because it means, as of right now, Israel is not importing goods through Eilat, which is one of its major ports. And so the working ports in Israel right now are on its Mediterranean coast, mainly Haifa, Ashdod. Those are the major ports. And, there was a time even when the port in Haifa was temporarily not very safe to use because of all the rockets being shot at the port of Haifa from Hezbollah. But that has since stopped being as much of a problem because Hezbollah has, for the most part, stopped firing rockets at Israel. There's just this tenuous ceasefire kind of holding up, even though it's officially not a ceasefire at the moment. And the last few times that rockets were fired from Lebanon, Hezbollah was very quick to jump up and down and say, no, it wasn't us, because they feared the reprisal that Israel would deliver if they took responsibility for the attack as they usually do. And the reason that they didn't want to take responsibility for the attack at this point is because Israel, between the months of September 2024 and basically January or February or December, between September and January or December and September and December 2024, Israel just decimated what was left of Hezbollah in South Lebanon. Now, it doesn't mean they got rid of everything, but they got rid of 80% or more, apparently, of the ability of Hezbollah to shoot things at Israel from South Lebanon. It doesn't mean they got rid of all the weapons. It doesn't even mean they got rid of 80% of the weapons. But they got rid of maybe they estimate 80 to 85% of the launching platforms, like the rocket launchers. Right? So if you have 100 rockets for a rocket launcher, but you don't have a rocket launcher, then those 100 rockets are useless. But as soon as you get a new launcher, well, then you can use them again. But the thing is, those launchers are not so easy to make, usually. And they're not, when they're for, higher end weapons, obviously. They're not so easy to make. They're very expensive. And they take a long time to make, relatively, and you have to ship them by airplane from wherever they have to come from, Russia or Iran or wherever. And Israel has basically made it very clear they're not going to tolerate that kind of import. And if they see anything like that coming into the airport in Beirut, they're just going to destroy it. And if they see anything like that coming over the land bridges from Syria, where they used to come unfettered, they'll just destroy it also. But now, of course, they can't come through the land bridges from Syria because Hezbollah does not have good relations with the terrorists, the Sunni terrorists that are now in control of Syria. Right? They're different than the Alawites who used to control, the Alawite government of Syria that used to control Syria under Assad. Um, so it's a weird situation, but there you have it. Um, there's an old expression: "The enemy of my enemy is my friend," but also sometimes the enemy of my enemy is also my enemy, right? And that's and dog barked at me. Anyway, um, so anyway, that's a quick update about what's happening here in northern Israel. It's a bit crazy that we're still at war with our insane neighbors, Hamas, and insane, not even neighbors, but just crazy people over 1,000 kilometers from here in Yemen for ideological reasons. You know, are they're backed by Iran, obviously, and therefore they're shooting missiles at us. They're insane. Like they can barely even feed their own people. Many people are starving. Many people are starving in Yemen. They have nothing. They have yes, sure, they do parades and they show off, what little equipment they're given by Iran. It's not that little, but it's just their army. The average person there is suffering, is very poor, has practically nothing. They're eating dirt all day, and they choose to spend whatever resources they get from Iran on attacking Israel because, well, they don't have any. The way they see it, that's their only option. It's mental, but there you go. Anyway, so Israel on the 80th Holocaust Remembrance Day, or on the Holocaust Remembrance Day, 80 years after the end of the Second World War, rather, still faces insane enemies that want to eradicate the Jewish people and the only country in the world for, by, and about the Jews, Israel. They want to eliminate us from existence, and that's the reality we live in here. It's completely mad, but yeah, that's the world we live in. So hopefully we'll see more peaceful days sooner rather than later. Till then, talk to you soon. Peace. Shalom.